A questionnaire, according to Dylan, Smith, and Christian, is a set of carefully planned written questions related to a particular research topic, which, when submitted to and answered accurately by properly selected persons called respondents, will supply data to complete the research project. Advantages of a questionnaire. The questionnaire is easy to construct. Distribution is easy and inexpensive. Tabulation of responses is easy. The respondent's replies are of his own. Its confidential information may be given freely. Respondents can fill out the questionnaire at their own convenience, and more accurate replies may be given. Disadvantages of questionnaires. The questionnaire cannot be used with illiterates. Some or many respondents may not return the questionnaire. A respondent may give wrong information. Respondents may leave some or many items unanswered. Some questions or items may be vague to the respondents, and the number of choices may be very limited. Characteristics of questionnaire. Elicits information from respondents. Results can be tabulated, standardized across respondents, understandable to respondents. Steps involved in the development of a questionnaire. Firstly, decide the information required, define the target respondents, choose the methods of researching your target respondents, decide on question content, develop the question wording, put questions into meaningful order and format, check the length of the questionnaire, pre-test the questionnaire, and develop the final survey form. Step 1. Decide on the information required. It should be noted that one does not start by writing questions. The first step is to decide what are the things one needs to know from the respondent in order to meet the surveyor's objectives. It should appear in the research brief and research proposal. Step 2. Define the target respondents. 1. Demographic characteristics. 2. Job or social category. 3. Other relevant characteristics. 4. Secondary ordinances. Let's go on to look at the demographic characteristics. Demographic characteristics such as age, sex, religion, urban residence, income level, social class, education, employment status, and ethnic or language group. Moreover, job or social category such as policymakers, doctors, nurses, factory workers, religious leaders, or university students. Moreover, other relevance. Some individuals or groups may be disappropriately affected by TB, such as people living with HIV and AIDS, imprisoned people, homeless populations, drug users, or family members of people with TB. Moreover, secondary audience. Your secondary audiences may include allies who can influence or provide access to your primary audience, such as community leaders or health authorities. Knowledge, attitudes, and health-seeking practices may vary substantially among population groups and according to social, cultural, and economic characteristics. Number 3, choose the methods of reaching the target respondents. Number 1, it may be face-to-face interview, it may be telephone interview, it may be a mail questionnaire, or it may be an internet questionnaire. Also, let's look into face-to-face interview. A face-to-face interview entails interviews or personal interviews or surveys conducted in person by an interviewer who usually travels with the person being surveyed. High response rates can clarify questions if necessary, control over respondent selection, can use longer, more complex questionnaires, and easier to motivate the respondent. Cons: high costs, time-consuming, and more administrative requirements. For example, selecting the training interviews, contacting respondents, travel arrangements. Also, there is a tendency for respondents to give socially acceptable answers. Let's also look at telephone interviews. Telephone interviews are usually conducted from a central office that places telephone calls to selected households or businesses. Good response rates: fast, some anonymity for respondents in answering questions, and control over respondent selections. If a comprehensive list of the target population is available, the likelihood of obtaining a representative sample is high. Cons: questionnaires must be short and not complex. Cannot control interruption by others in the household or office. Hard to find persons at home, and those that are at home may resent intrusion. There is a mounting displeasure among households receiving unsolicited telephone calls. Requires training and quality control monitoring of the interviews, and is usually difficult to target a specific geographical location. Mail questionnaires are written surveys that are sent through the mail to selected members of the population to be surveyed. Pros: good response rates with rigorous follow-up procedures, relatively easy to obtain a listed population, and encourage respondents can avoid interviewer bias and distortion. Answers unlikely to be socially influenced, easy to administer, and relatively low cost, can cover a wide geographical area, and more manageable for handling large samples. Cons: questionnaires may be given to someone else to fill out or may not reach the desired respondent. Most difficult type of questionnaire to design. Hard to interpret open-ended questions, cannot control sequence in which the respondents answer questions, and time-consuming, given periodic mail-out requirements. Also, internet questionnaires. An internet questionnaire is a form of a written survey. Respondents may be invited to participate in the survey through email, or because they visit a particular web page. Pro: fast to conduct and tabulate. Some software products allow questionnaires to be customized depending on the respondent's answers. Avoids interviewers' bias and distortion. Answers unlikely to be socially influenced. Easy to administer and relatively low cost. Cons: information transferred via the internet may not be confidential. Poor control over respondent selection. Follow-up difficult to conduct. Difficult to obtain probability sample. And like mail surveys, this is the most difficult type of questionnaire to design. Deciding on question content. There are a series of questions that should be posed as the researchers develop the survey questions themselves. For instance, a researcher may ask themselves, is this question sufficient to generate the required information? Or can the respondent answer the questions correctly? For example, how many members are there in your family? There is room for ambiguity in such a question, since it is open to interpretation as to whether one is speaking of the immediate or extended family. Developing the question wording involves contingency questions, matrix questions, close-ended questions, and open-ended questions. I would like to look closely into close-ended questions and open-ended questions. Close-ended questions. Respondents' answers are limited to a fixed set of responses. 4 types of responses scale for closed-ended questions are distinguished as follows. Determinist, where the respondent has 2 options. Nominal polytomous, where the respondent has more than 2 unordered options. Ordinal polytomous, where the respondent has more than 2 ordered options. Bounded, continuous, where the respondent is presented with a continuous scale. Examples of types of scale include the Likert scale, semantic differential scale, and rank order scale. Lastly, looking at open-ended questions. Open-ended questions are completely unstructured. For example, what is your opinion on questionnaires? Word association, words are presented and respondent mentions the first word that comes to mind. Sentence completion, respondents complete an incomplete sentence. Story completion, respondents complete an incomplete story. Picture completion, respondents fill in an empty conversation balloon. And lastly, thematic apperception test. The respondents explain a picture or make up a story about what they think is happening in the picture.
Question overflow. Questions should flow in a kind of psychological order so that one leads easily and naturally to the next. Questions on one subject or particular aspects of a subject should be grouped together. Questions should flow logically from one to the next. The researcher must ensure that the answer to a question is not influenced by previous questions. Questions should flow from one general to the more specific. Stage 6. Putting questions into meaningful order and format. According to the 3 stages theory, also called the sandwich theory, initial questions should be screening and repeating questions. Then in the second stage, you ask all research-specific questions. In the last stage, you ask demographic questions, opening questions, question flow, question variety, and closing questions. Opening questions. Opening questions should be easy to answer and not in a way threatening to the respondents. The first question is crucial because it is the respondent's first exposure to the interview and sets of tone for the nature of the task to be performed. If they find the first question hard to understand or beyond their knowledge and experience or embarrassing in a way, they are likely to break off immediately. If, on the other hand, they find the questions easy and pleasant to answer, they are encouraged to continue. Questions should flow from the least sensitive to the most sensitive. Questions should flow from factual and behavioral questions to attitudinal and opinion questions. Questions should flow from unaided to aided questions. Question variety. Respondents become bored quickly and restless when asked similar questions for half an hour or so. It usually improves response. Therefore, to vary the respondent's task from time to time, an open-minded question here and there, even if it is not analyzed, may provide much needed relief from a long series of questions in which respondents have been forced to limit their replies to pre-recorded categories. Questions involving showing cards, pictures to respondents can help vary their pace and increase interest. Closing questions. It is natural for the respondent to become increasingly indifferent to the questionnaire as it nears to the end because of impatience or fatigue. He may give careless answers to the later questions. Those questions that are of special importance should, if possible, be included in the earlier part of the questionnaire. Potentially sensitive questions should be left towards the end to avoid respondents cutting off the interview before important information is collected. Step 7. Presentation and layout of the interview. Use of booklets, simple clear formats, creative use of space and typeface, use of color coding, interview instructions, and then there's step 8, pre-testing and questionnaires. Whether the questions are worded. Step 8, piloting and pre-testing the questions. One should check whether the questions worded will achieve the desired results, whether the questions have been placed in the best order, whether the questions are understood by all classes or respondents, whether the questions additional or specifying questions are needed, or whether some questions should be eliminated. Lastly, one should check whether the questions or the instructions to the interview are adequate. Step 9. Recognizing poor questions through pretest. 1. Lack of order in answers. 2. All or none responses. 3. High proportion of don't know or I don't understand answers. 4. great number of qualifications or relevant comments. 5. High proportions of refusals to answer. 6. Substantial variation in answers when order of questions have been changed. Types of questions asked in a survey questionnaire. According to form, there are two types. The first one, the free answer type. The respondent is free to answer the question in his own way, in his own words. This is called the open form, open-ended, subjective, unrestricted essay, free response, and unguided response. 2. The guided response type. This is called the closed form or restricted type. The respondent is guided in making his reply. There are two kinds of this type, a recall and recognition type. Recall type. The replies are recalled and supplied. 2. The recognition type. There are options given and the respondent chooses his reply and replies. There are three types: dichotomous, multiple choices, and multiple response. Dichotomous. There are only two options and one is chosen.